In 1864, Russia's original overthinker, Fyodor Dostoevsky wrote, "What can be expected of man since he is a being endowed with strange qualities? Shower upon him every earthly blessing, drown him in a sea of happiness so that nothing but bubbles of bliss can be seen on the surface. Give him economic prosperity, such that he should have nothing else to do but sleep, eat cakes, and busy himself with the continuation of his species. And even then, out of sheer ingratitude, sheer spite, man would play you some nasty trick. He would even risk his cakes and would deliberately desire the most fatal rubbish, the most uneconomical absurdity, simply to introduce into all this positive good sense his fatal fantastic element. It is just his fantastic dreams, his vulgar folly, that he will desire to detain, simply in order to prove to himself, as though that were so necessary, that men still are men and not the keys of a piano." This one paragraph from Notes from Underground, with some pretty heavy words, perhaps sums up the novel's entire essence, revealing the absurdity of human nature with their flawed, irrational, and unpredictable craving for free will and independent choice. Humans act against their own self-interest, just to assert their freedom or prove that they are not bound by deterministic rules. Notes from Underground can be considered as the novel that made Dostoevsky, in the sense that it's seen as the source of all his later works. It's also the ultimate introvert's handbook, giving you 100 more reasons to avoid socializing and overanalyze every awkward interaction until it starts haunting your dreams. In this novel, Dostoevsky challenges the utopianism that was promised and sought after during its time. Utopianism is the belief that society can be perfected through rational planning, laws, and systems that align with human happiness and well-being. It presents a society where everything is perfect and predictable down to the very minutest of details. While Dostoevsky believed that humans, in their very nature, are irrational beings who won't always act in accordance to their self-interest. This irrationality and free will, he believes, is what makes humans human. If everything, including human nature and behavior, could be tabulated, calculated, and predicted, what would then be the difference between a man and a piano key? This novel is presented as the fictional apology of the unnamed narrator, the Underground Man, a former official of mid-19th century Russia. Nearly 200 years since the novel's publication, the Underground Man's complex psychology and themes of isolation and defiance makes the novel ever so relevant. The Underground Man categorizes humans into two halves based on their level of consciousness, that is, the ones with ordinary human consciousness and the ones with greater human consciousness. But what is this consciousness? For the Underground Man, consciousness is not just the ability to think and reason. It's a deeper, almost obsessive self-reflection that makes individuals keenly aware of their own flaws, contradictions, and absurdity of human nature. Those with the ordinary consciousness he refers to as men of action, for those are the ones who don't invite their own misery and degradation through overthinking and get their things done and have their lives together, while those with greater consciousness are stuck in their own heads, so hyper-aware of the inherent meaningless and absurdity of everything, including their own existence, that they downplay their own value and self-worth. The Underground Man argues that men of action go headfirst into any wall to get what they desire. Wall here represents any inconvenience or obstacle that awaits them in their pursuit of what they desire. For example, if the man of action desires revenge, he will do everything in his power to get revenge, to proclaim justice and self-righteousness. To the man of consciousness, the wall is simply an excuse to keep ruminating in his own head and not take any action. Even if he tries to get revenge, he will do so in small steps, that too by being hidden. It won't be a face-to-face confrontation, and in doing so he will hurt himself more than the one with whom he tried to get his revenge. Let's say both the man of action and the man of consciousness work in an office and a co-worker takes credit for a project they worked on. Here, both the man of action and man of consciousness will react differently as per their level of consciousness. The man of action will immediately become furious. He will confront his co-worker the moment an ideal opportunity arises, maybe in a team meeting or a one-on-one confrontation. He will demand public recognition for his work and let everyone know that his co-worker acted unethically. He will leave no room for ambiguity in his stance and hence will feel satisfied with the notion that he upheld his personal sense of justice. The man of consciousness, while equally hurt, will not directly confront his co-worker. He will turn inward, questioning why his co-worker betrayed him. He will analyze all his recent interactions with the co-worker, wondering if he is somehow to blame and trying to find the right way to respond. Instead of a direct confrontation, he will plot a more indirect path to revenge in ways that can be tracked back to him. He will perhaps drop hints about the co-worker's unreliability to their boss, or find ways to take credit for the co-worker's future ideas. However, the more he contemplates and strategizes, the more confused he becomes, trapped between wanting to take revenge and self-criticism regarding the pettiness of his actions. However, when confronted with a stone wall, the man of action will subside at once. The stone wall refers to the laws of nature, the discoveries of science, and the calculations of mathematics. They do not revolt or oppose factual evidence. Dostoevsky wrote, "As soon as they prove to you, for instance, that you are descended from a monkey, then it is no use scowling. Accept it for a fact. When they prove you that in reality one drop of your own fat must be dearer to you than 100,000 of your fellow creatures, and that this conclusion is the final solution of all so-called virtues and duties and all such prejudices and fancies, then you have just to accept it. There is no help for it, for 2 is 2 is a law of mathematics." The conscious man, however, neither accepts the laws of nature nor cares for them, but will not take any tangible action to oppose them. He will only keep contemplating about the absurdities of such laws. Of course, I cannot break through the wall by battering my head against it if I really have not the strength to knock it down. But I am not going to be reconciled to it simply because it is a stone wall and I have not the strength. The underground man is opposed to the idea that man does nasty things because he does not know his own interests. He argues that man does immoral or unethical things not as a result of his ignorance but rather as a result of his irrationality. Here, through the underground man, Dostoevsky again opposes the utopianism's belief that from the laws of nature, a fully rational world could be created. A world where once people understand the irrationality of their desires, they would no longer desire them. Say you are addicted to social media and doom scrolling. In a completely rational world, once you have fully internalized the damage of social media addiction and doom scrolling, you would likely quit them, because continuing these actions would seem as irrationally harming yourself. But in reality, you don't do so. And even if you do, the path to liberate yourself from such detrimental habits is never as straightforward as rationalist and utopian beliefs present it to be. And who is to say that these so-called detrimental habits are against your self-interest? The fact that you willingly choose to indulge in such disruptive habits, indulge in depravity and in vice, is what aligns most with your self-interest, or, in the underground man's words, is your most advantageous advantage. One's own free, unfettered choice, one's own caprice, however wild it may be, one's own fancy worked up at times to frenzy, is that very most advantageous advantage. Your caprice and desires are what give you your personality and individuality, and rationality is the biggest threat to it. If man were 100% pure logical creature, he wouldn't have any desires left. All his actions would be governed by the laws of nature, and when humans begin to always act accordingly to the calculated and predictable foundations laid by these laws, individual freedom and free will cease to exist. Hence, humans would lose their irrational, unpredictable aspect of their nature that truly makes them human. The underground man provides an example of the Palace of Crystal, a perfect, rational, utopian society where everything is orderly and transparent and people live in accordance with the laws of nature and logic. While such a society may sound lucrative and appealing, it is impossible to create one, let alone sustain it. Such a utopia leaves no room for irrationality, and humans with their desire for autonomy will always defy being puppets to the laws of nature. The underground man is against such a society, for then, where is one's individuality? Where is one's idiocracy and irrationality?